If you've been trying to grow long, healthy hair and it feels like nothing is working, this might be the most important video you watch all year. Because the biggest secret to growing hair faster isn't a miracle oil, a supplement, or a trendy mask. It's something almost no one is doing correctly, and once you fix it, everything else starts working better. Here's the truth. Hair growth doesn't start at the ends. It starts at the scalp, but length is kept at the ends. Most people obsess over growth and completely ignore retention. They're technically growing hair, but they're losing the same amount to breakage without realizing it. That's why your hair feels like it's stuck at the same length year after year. Let me explain this simply. Your hair is always growing. Unless you have a medical condition, your scalp is producing hair every single day. The real question is, are you keeping that hair long enough for it to actually show? And for most people, the answer is no. The fastest way to grow long hair is to stop breaking it. That's the secret. And breakage usually comes from everyday habits that feel harmless. Things like washing too aggressively, using the wrong shampoo for your scalp type, brushing dry hair incorrectly, or applying heat without proper protection. Let's start with washing because this is where most people accidentally sabotage their hair. Your scalp is skin, and skin needs to be clean for hair to grow at its best. When oil, sweat, and buildup sit on the scalp, they create inflammation. Inflammation slows growth and weakens the hair at the root. So skipping washes to protect your hair can actually do the opposite. But here's the key. You don't need harsh shampoo. You need the right shampoo for your scalp type. If your scalp gets oily within a day or two, you should be washing more often, not less. Clean scalp equals healthier follicles. Healthier follicles grow stronger hair that's less likely to snap later. Now let's talk about conditioner because this is where length is protected. Conditioner isn't optional if you want long hair. Hair that isn't conditioned becomes dry, rough, and fragile. That roughness causes friction, and friction causes breakage. Every time your hair rubs against your clothes, your pillow, or your brush, tiny cracks form in the cuticle. Over time, those cracks turn into split ends. When you condition correctly, you smooth the cuticle. Smooth hair slides instead of snagging. That one change alone can dramatically increase how much length you keep over the year. Another massive mistake I see is brushing. Wet hair is more fragile than dry hair, but dry hair with tangles can be just as damaging. The secret is using the right tool and the right technique. Always start detangling from the ends and slowly work your way up. Ripping through knots from the roots down is basically asking your hair to break. Heat is another big one. Heat doesn't have to ruin your hair, but unprotected heat will. Every time you use a blow dryer, flat iron, or curling tool without a proper heat protectant, you're weakening the protein structure of the hair. Weak hair doesn't grow long. It breaks before it gets the chance. A good heat protectant creates a barrier that slows down damage and reduces moisture loss. This is non-negotiable if you use heat and want long hair. Think of it like sunscreen for your hair. You wouldn't sit in the sun all day without protection and expect healthy skin. Now let's talk about trims because this part confuses a lot of people. Trimming your hair does not make it grow faster. Hair grows from the scalp, not the ends. But trimming does help you grow longer hair over time because it removes weak, splitting ends before they travel up the hair shaft. When splits climb, you lose more length than you would have from a small trim. The goal isn't frequent big cuts. The goal is tiny, strategic trims to protect length. Finally, consistency is everything. Hair growth is slow. You don't see results in a week or even a month. But when you stack good habits day after day, the difference becomes dramatic over 6 months to a year. People will think you discovered some secret product when really you just stopped damaging your hair and started protecting it. So if you want long, healthy hair fast, stop chasing shortcuts. Clean your scalp properly, condition every time, handle your hair gently, protect it from heat, and focus on keeping the hair you grow. That's the real secret, and once you understand it, long hair stops being luck and starts being predictable. Most people think hair growth is all about speed. They want to know how to make their hair grow faster, what oil accelerates growth, what vitamin makes hair explode with length. But here's the reality almost no one talks about. Your hair is already growing right now, every single day. The real reason it never gets long is because you're losing it at the same rate you're growing it. That's why retention, not growth speed, is the true secret to long hair. Let's break this down in the simplest way possible. Hair grows from the scalp at an average rate that you cannot dramatically change. You can support healthy growth, sure, but you can't double it overnight. What you can control completely is how much of that grown hair you keep. And most people are unknowingly destroying their length through daily habits that feel totally normal. Think about this. If your hair grows about half an inch a month, that's 6 inches a year. If you're breaking off 6 inches a year through damage, friction, and poor handling, your hair will look like it never grows. But in reality, it's growing perfectly fine. It's just not surviving long enough to show it. This is why people get frustrated and say, my hair just doesn't grow. What they really mean is, my hair breaks faster than it grows. That's an entirely different problem, and it requires an entirely different solution. Breakage happens when the hair fiber becomes weak. Hair is strongest when the cuticle, the outer layer, lies flat and smooth. When that cuticle gets chipped, lifted, or cracked, the hair loses strength. Once strength is gone, length doesn't stand a chance. Here's where retention becomes everything. Long hair isn't about forcing growth. It's about protecting the hair fiber so it can survive months and years without snapping. Every inch of long hair you see on someone's head is old hair. That hair has survived countless washes, brushes, pillowcases, weather changes, and styling sessions. That survival is not luck. It's management. One of the biggest myths in hair care is that breakage only comes from extreme damage. People think unless they're bleaching or using high heat at daily, they're safe. That's not true at all. Most breakage comes from low-level damage repeated every single day, tiny amounts of stress that don't seem like a big deal in the moment but add up over time. Take friction, for example. Hair rubbing against cotton pillowcases, hoodie collars, car seats, and backpack straps creates constant wear on the cuticle. When the cuticle wears down, the hair becomes rough. Rough hair tangles more. Tangled hair breaks more easily. This is how people slowly lose length without ever seeing a dramatic break. Another silent length killer is improper detangling. Pulling through knots, brushing aggressively, or using the wrong tools creates micro breaks along the hair shaft. You might not see hair snapping in half, but you'll notice more flyaways, thinner ends, and uneven length over time. That's retention loss happening right in front of you. Retention also explains why some people seem to grow long hair effortlessly. It's not that their hair grows faster, it's that their hair breaks less. They may wash correctly, condition consistently, handle hair gently, and avoid unnecessary damage. So while someone else grows 6 inches and loses 5, they grow 6 and keep all 6. Let's talk about washing, because this is where many people accidentally ruin their retention. Dirty hair tangles more, product buildup increases, friction. Oil and sweat attract dust, which roughens the hair surface. When hair is rough, it's weaker. Weak hair breaks. Skipping washes to protect hair often backfires because buildup actually increases damage. Clean hair behaves better. It tangles less, responds better to conditioner, and moves more smoothly against it. Self and fabrics. That smooth movement is key for retention. Hair that glides doesn't snap. Conditioner is another major player in length retention. Conditioner doesn't just make hair feel soft. It temporarily repairs weak spots, smooths the cuticle, and reduces friction. When people skip conditioner or apply it incorrectly, they're leaving their hair exposed and vulnerable. Over time, that exposure shows up as thin, fragile ends that refuse to grow longer. Retention also explains why trims matter, but not in the way most people think. Trimming doesn't help growth at the scalp, but it absolutely helps you keep length. Split ends don't stay at the tips. They travel upward. When they do, they force you to cut more length later. Strategic, minimal trims stop that upward damage and preserve overall length. Another misunderstood part of retention is styling frequency. The more you manipulate hair, the more opportunities there are for damage. Constant brushing, restyling, reworking, and touching all increase mechanical stress. Hair doesn't need to be left alone completely, but it does need intentional handling. Every movement should have a purpose. Heat styling plays a role here too. Heat weakens the protein structure of hair. Weak protein means reduced tensile strength. Reduced strength means easier breakage. This doesn't mean heat must be avoided forever, but it must be respected. Heat without protection shortens the lifespan of your hair dramatically. Retention also ties into expectations. Hair growth is slow by nature. People sabotage retention because they expect instant results. They switch routines too often, overcorrect problems, or try extreme methods that cause damage. Long hair rewards patience and consistency, not aggression. One of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make is this: every inch of hair is valuable. Treat your ends like delicate fabric. Protect them, moisturize them, minimize stress on them. When you do that, length becomes inevitable. Another thing people don't realize is that breakage doesn't always look obvious. It doesn't always mean hair falling out in chunks. It can show up as hair that won't pass a certain length, ends that look wispy, or styles that never feel full. Those are all signs that retention is the real issue. Once you focus on retention, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I make my hair grow faster? And start asking, how do I keep the hair I already grow? That question leads to smarter decisions, better habits, and long-term results. This is why expensive growth products often disappoint people. You can stimulate the scalp all you want, but if the hair snaps at the ends, you'll never see the benefit. Growth without retention is wasted effort. The good news is retention is fixable. You don't need perfect genetics. You don't need rare products. You need awareness and consistency. When you remove the daily sources of damage and replace them with protective habits, hair responds quickly. Over time, your ends become thicker, your hair feels stronger, breakage slows down, and suddenly, length that felt impossible starts showing up. Not because your hair magically changed, but because you finally allowed it to survive. That's the real secret to growing long, healthy hair fast. You don't force it, you protect it. When retention becomes your priority, long hair stops being a mystery and starts being a result. One of the most overlooked truths about hair growth is this: healthy hair starts with a healthy scalp, and long hair depends on proper conditioning. You cannot separate these two. People try to treat them like optional steps, but they are the foundation. If either one is wrong, hair growth slows down, hair strength drops, and breakage takes over. Let's start with the scalp, because this is where everything begins. Your scalp is skin, not hair, and skin has needs. It produces oil, it sheds dead cells, it reacts to buildup, and it becomes inflamed when it's not cared for properly. When the scalp environment is unhealthy, hair follicles cannot perform at their best. That means weaker hair from the very start. A lot of people think washing less equals healthier hair. This idea has been repeated so often that it feels like fact, but it's not universally true. The right washing schedule depends entirely on your scalp. An oily scalp needs frequent cleansing. A dry scalp needs gentler products, not neglect. When oil, sweat, and product buildup sit on the scalp for too long, they clog follicles and create irritation. Irritation leads to inflammation, and inflammation interferes with optimal hair growth. A clean scalp allows follicles to function normally. Blood flow improves, oxygen delivery improves, nutrient exchange improves. All of these things support stronger hair production. Stronger hair at the root has a better chance of surviving long enough to become long hair. Another issue with buildup is that it doesn't stay on the scalp, it coats the hair shaft. That coating makes hair dull, stiff, and more prone to tangling. Tangling increases friction. Friction leads to breakage. So when people avoid washing to protect their hair, they often create the exact conditions that cause length loss. Using the right shampoo is more important than using fewer shampoos. A shampoo that matches your scalp type cleans effectively without stripping. Stripping shampoos can make hair feel dry and brittle, but under-cleansing can cause just as much damage over time. Balance is the goal. Now let's talk about conditioner, because this is where length is truly protected. Conditioner is not just a cosmetic product, it's a structural support system for your hair. Hair that isn't conditioned properly is exposed. The cuticle stays raised, moisture escapes, and the hair becomes rough. Rough hair doesn't slide, it catches, it snaps. Every time hair bends, stretches, or rubs against something, the cuticle takes stress. Conditioner reduces that stress. It fills in microscopic gaps in the cuticle and smooths the surface. This makes hair more flexible and less likely to break under normal handling. One of the biggest mistakes people make is skipping conditioner because they think it makes hair heavy or greasy. When used correctly, conditioner should never touch the scalp unless it's designed for that. It belongs on the mid-lengths and ends, where hair is the oldest and weakest. These areas have been exposed to months or years of wear. They need support, Another common mistake is rinsing conditioner out too quickly. Conditioner needs time to bond to the hair. Rushing this step reduces its effectiveness. Taking an extra minute can significantly improve hair strength and manageability. Conditioning also affects detangling. Well-conditioned hair separates more easily. Knots loosen instead of tightening. This reduces mechanical damage during brushing or styling. Less damage means better retention. Better retention means longer hair over time. Deep conditioning plays a role too, especially for hair that's been chemically treated, heat styled, or exposed to harsh environments. Deep conditioners penetrate more deeply and provide longer lasting reinforcement. They don't replace regular conditioner, but they enhance overall hair resilience when used consistently. Scalp health and conditioning also work together in another important way. When hair grows out of a healthy scalp and is immediately protected with proper conditioning, it starts its life in a strong state. That strength compounds over time. Hair that begins strong stays strong longer. People often focus on fixing damaged ends while ignoring scalp issues. But if the scalp is inflamed or clogged, new hair will continue to grow uncompromised. You end up chasing damage instead of preventing it. Prevention always wins. Let's also address water and washing technique because these matter more than people think. Rough handling during shampooing can cause tangling at the roots, which leads to breakage during detangling. Gentle scalp massage, not aggressive scrubbing, cleans effectively without stressing the hair shaft. Rinsing thoroughly is just as important. Leftover shampoo or conditioner residue contributes to buildup and dullness. Clean, balanced hair responds better to styling and breaks less during daily wear. Another misunderstood topic is washing frequency and hair length. Some people believe washing frequently stops hair growth. In reality, frequent washing with the wrong products causes damage, not washing itself. When done correctly, regular washing supports scalp health and improves hair behavior. Hair that behaves well is easier to manage. Easier management means less manipulation. Less manipulation means less breakage. Everything connects back to retention. Environmental factors also impact scalp health. Sweat, pollution, and hard water can all affect how the scalp and hair behave. Clarifying occasionally when needed removes stubborn buildup that regular shampoo may miss. This resets the scalp and allows conditioners and treatments to work properly again. Now let's talk about the psychological side of conditioning. When hair feels soft, smooth, and manageable, people handle it more gently. They're less likely to overbrush, tug, or restyle excessively. This indirect benefit alone can significantly improve length retention. On the flip side, dry, rough hair frustrates people. They fight it. They force it into styles. They apply more heat. All of this increases damage. Conditioner reduces that cycle. Consistency is critical here. One good wash day won't fix months of neglect. Scalp health and conditioning are habits, not events. When done regularly, results compound quietly until one day you realize your hair feels thicker, longer, and stronger than it ever has before. Another important point is that scalp health doesn't mean overloading it with products. Oils, serums, and treatments can be helpful, but only when the scalp is clean and balanced. Adding products on top of buildup usually makes things worse, not better. Long hair is not grown through extremes. It's grown through balance. Clean but not stripped. Conditioned but not weighed down. Treated with respect at every stage. Once you understand this, hair care stops being confusing. You stop chasing trends and start building a routine that actually works. A routine that supports growth at the scalp and protects length at the ends. When scalp health and conditioning are dialed in, hair growth becomes predictable. You don't wonder if your hair will grow. You know it will. And more importantly, you know it will stay. That's why this keynote matters so much. Because without a clean scalp and proper conditioning, every other hair goal becomes harder. But when you get these two right, long, healthy hair stops being a struggle and starts being the natural outcome of good care, one of the biggest reasons people struggle to grow long, healthy hair is not genetics, not age, and not bad luck. It's damage from daily habits. Gentle handling, proper heat protection, and smart trim sound simple, but together they decide whether your hair survives long enough to become long. This is where most length is either saved or silently destroyed. Let's start with handling, because this happens every single day. Hair is strongest when it's dry and smooth, and weakest when it's wet and stretched. Wet hair can stretch up to 30% of its length, and when it snaps back, it doesn't always recover. That's why aggressive brushing on wet hair causes so much breakage. You might not see it immediately, but over time the ends become thinner and uneven. Gentle handling doesn't mean being afraid of your hair, it means being intentional. Every time you touch your hair, there's potential for stress. Pulling, twisting, overbrushing, or constantly adjusting styles all add mechanical damage. Hair responds best to calm, controlled movements. Detangling technique alone can completely change your length over a year. Always start at the ends. Let knots release slowly instead of forcing them apart. Using the wrong brush or comb can turn a simple task into a damage session. Tools matter because they determine how force is distributed along the hair shaft. Another overlooked habit is handling hair when it's dry but tangled. Dry tangles feel harmless, but forcing a brush through them creates snap points. This is why many people notice breakage even when they avoid brushing wet hair. Detangling should always be slow and supported regardless of hair condition. Now let's talk about heat, because heat damage is one of the fastest ways to shorten the life of your hair. Heat changes the structure of the hair protein. When protein weakens, hair loses elasticity. Without elasticity, hair breaks instead of bending. That's the difference between hair that grows long and hair that never makes it past a certain point. Heat tools themselves aren't evil. The problem is misuse. High temperatures, repeated passes, and lack of protection compound damage quickly. Using heat without a protectant is like ironing delicate fabric without a barrier. You might get away with it once, but repeated exposure causes permanent damage. Heat protectants work by slowing down heat transfer and reducing moisture loss. They don't make hair invincible, but they significantly reduce stress. This allows hair to maintain strength over time. Skipping this step even occasionally adds up. Temperature control is another critical factor. Many people use heat tools at maximum settings without realizing they're exceeding what hair can tolerate. Most hair types don't need extreme heat to style effectively. Lower temperatures applied with patience cause far less damage and still deliver results. Frequency matters just as much as temperature. Styling with heat every day dramatically shortens hair lifespan. Spacing out heat sessions gives hair time to recover and reduces cumulative damage. Long hair isn't grown through constant perfection, but through smart moderation. Now let's move to trims because this topic causes endless confusion. Trims do not make hair grow faster, but they absolutely determine how long your hair can grow. Split ends are structural damage. Once they appear, they don't fix themselves. They continue splitting upward, weakening the hair shaft as they go. If splits travel, you lose more length later than you would have from a small trim earlier. Strategic trims are preventative, not corrective. The goal is to remove damaged ends before they cause bigger problems. Many people wait too long between trims because they're afraid of losing length. Ironically, this often causes them to lose more length overall. Tiny trims done at the right time protect the bulk of the hair. Another mistake is trimming too often or cutting too much. This resets progress and creates the illusion that hair won't grow. Trims should be minimal and intentional. The focus should always be on preserving length, not chasing perfection. Styling habits also play a role in trimming needs. Hair that's handled gently and protected from heat needs fewer trims. Hair that's constantly stressed needs more maintenance. This is why routines matter more than genetics. Let's also talk about everyday styling choices. Tight hairstyles create tension at the roots and friction at the ends. Over time, this leads to breakage and thinning. Alternating styles and avoiding constant tension gives hair a better chance to survive. Sleeping habits matter too. Hair rubs against pillows for hours every night. Rough fabrics increase friction, which wears down the cuticle. Protective styles and smoother fabrics reduce this nightly damage, quietly improving retention. Another underrated factor is how often people touch their hair. Constant touching, twirling, or adjusting seems harmless, but it adds stress. Hair does best when it's left alone once styled. The less manipulation, the better the outcome. Even accessories can cause damage. Tight elastics, rough clips, and sharp edges create weak points. Choosing gentle accessories protects the hair during daily wear. The key theme here is intention. Long hair doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of hundreds of small, smart decisions repeated over time. Each gentle detangle, each protected heat session, each small trim adds up. What makes this powerful is that none of these habits require expensive products or extreme routines. They require awareness. Once you see how easily length can be lost, you naturally become more careful. Over months, the difference becomes obvious. Hair feels stronger, ends look fuller, styles hold better, and suddenly, hair that once stalled at a certain length starts moving past it. This is why people who grow long hair often say it was about what they stopped doing, not what they started doing. They stopped overhandling. They stopped overheating. They stopped ignoring damage at the ends. Gentle handling, heat protection, and smart trims are not exciting topics, but they are powerful. They quietly decide whether your hair thrives or struggles. When these habits become normal, long hair becomes sustainable. You're no longer fighting breakage. You're working with your hair instead of against it. That's the final piece of the puzzle. Growth happens at the scalp, but length is earned through care. And when you respect your hair every day, it rewards you with strength, shine, and the long, healthy length. Most people spend years chasing